So I'm just going to go through a walkthrough of how to do this front-end mentor challenge. This one's a pretty basic one, just HTML. I'm going to use SCSS to make it a little bit easier. Let's download the files they give us. So you click on the challenge, download starter. Should download in a second. Yep. Extract all. I'll bring this to the side and I will open up Visual Studio. I'm just going to create a new folder for the project. This one's the 3-column layout. And you could use this kind of setup for a lot of different websites because it's pretty much just like 3 different features, and a lot of websites have that kind of thing, and you could link to different web pages, or this example they've got 3 different types of cars. Okay, so we've got our folder set up. I'm going to open this, and actually I'll get my starter files first. Okay, so in the starter files, it'll give you a design file, which is just what the end result should look like in different states, like the desktop preview, the mobile preview. So the mobile version should look like this. I'm just going to drag all of this into my new folder. Images, style guide. Some of this stuff we don't really need, like the README. So I'm just going to delete those. I'll delete the git ignore. The images will give us the icons that we'll need. I'm just going to open this in Visual Studio using the git bash, but you could just open the folder the regular way of using file open. Okay, close that down. Cool. So this is the HTML file. This is the text. It automatically gives us the text we need for the different styles. I'm gonna just bring up what it should look like. Where did I put it? Oh, in the designs. I'm just gonna open the file so I can get the desktop version up and ready to look at. Desktop design. Okay. So this is what we're trying to create. I'm just going to move this over here for now. So I'm trying to set up SCSS. So I'll have to create. You'll first have to download Live SAS compiler. It'll just make things a lot easier. So go into extensions in VS Code and search for Live SAS. And this one here. It'll have around 1 million downloads. This will make things a lot easier, and it'll give you this little button down the below that you can just click to compile all your SAS into regular CSS. Otherwise, you'll have to, I'll show you, you have to run like a command to compile your SAS every time. So it's just a lot easier doing this way. Installing this will also install the live server extension, so you can view what you're building in your web browser. I've already got it down here. It just comes up with this as this go live button. So I'm going to go back, and the way I've set up my live SAS compiler, once you install that, typically you would just create a .styles.css file and click watch SAS, and it'll automatically generate the SAS into 2 separate files within the same directory. And that's completely fine. But I'm going to go into settings, live SAS, and down here where it says live SAS settings formats, this shows you this part here. is what I've got set to a different directory so that whenever I click live SAS, it saves it within a folder. It creates the folder if it doesn't exist within dist CSS. So it should create a dist CSS in here. So I'm just going to create a SCSS folder here, and then within here, styles.scss, and then if I click live SAS, it should generate a new folder. Yep, so this is the folder structure that was specified here. But if this doesn't show up for you, it'll probably just have these two files within the main directory, and then what you're trying to do is you'll have to link the HTML file to this styles.css. This map is just another file that some of the CSS preprocessors need for the browsers to use them properly, but we don't really need to know what this one does. We just need to link this one. So I'll do that now. So I saved my CSS in dist css styles.css, and to check it's all working, I've got live SAS running. I click go live. So that's running fine, and then I'll just check that styles.css, the SAS file is working properly. Cool. That's working all good. And you'll see that every time I save, live SAS compiler goes ahead, recompiles, and the changes show up in the regular CSS file. Because the HTML doesn't really know what this file is. It needs to be recompiled to this for it to work properly. Cool. So we don't really want to touch the CSS file now. Now that that's working, all our stuff is just going to be, all our work is just going to be within this file here. So I can close this one, close the settings, HTML and SCSS. Cool. So whenever I'm working on the website, I firstly just like to do some reset settings. So margin 0, padding 0, box sizing, border box. That just resets everything. Gets rid of any margin that shouldn't be there. I'm just going to get rid of this for now so it's not in the way. Cool. So first we will need, where's our image? So good. We need 3 columns, and it looks like they're all centered in the middle of the page, so you'll need space on either side. So for this, it'll be easier if we have a container that wraps everything, and then so there'll be a container div, there'll be a div that wraps these 3, then there'll be a div for each one of these columns. So let's go ahead and do that. Container, I'm going to name this one that wraps these 3 cars, and then within cars I'll have cars column, and then I'll have 3 of these. But the first one will be, we'll have an orange column, orange background, column cyan, column dark cyan. And we can, where I'm getting these names from is if you go into the style guide, it lists all the different colors and the names that they've called them. So we'll probably need some variables for these. I'm just going to quickly check how to do SCSS variables. I just forgot. Okay, like this. So if we go up here, color cyan. Let's just test and see if this works. Let's test. How do they use it here? Cool. Okay, so this is how you set variables in SCSS. And this is going to be a lot easier than, or a lot cleaner than having to just use this color within different styles all over the place. So we'll close that. We'll have color. Oh, sorry, this is going to be orange. Color cyan will be this one. And then this one I'll just set as normal cyan. This one will be very dark, so I'll just say this is dark cyan. Cool. What else do we need? We'll need to install these, or have a link to these fonts as well. So I'm going to open that. It says that we want weight 400 for this one. And it'll be easier if we just have a, I think we can actually, this will give us a little import link, but if I open this one and I select 700, to avoid having two import links, if we do them both together, it'll include both. Copy this. You can also have a link in the HTML. Either of them are fine. I think I saw online that typically the link in the HTML is a little bit of a more performant way, but for something as small as this, it doesn't really matter. So copy that, put it up top, and now we've got our fonts ready. Cool. Okay. Now, within this column, we are going to start setting it up. So, let's just refer back to that image. So we've got a little icon. We've got what looks like a H2, some paragraph text, and a button for each. So we're going to have that icon set up first. So we're going to wrap the icon in an image container, just so we can manage the size of the icon a bit better. So image container, and that's a little trick that I didn't mention, is instead of writing div tab and then class name, you can just write a full stop with the class name, and it'll and then tab, and it'll automatically generate the div with the right class. So image container, image. So this particular one is the sedans. Oop. Sedans. Cool. And then after the image container, we'll need the H2. So we'll have a H2 with a title, with a class name, sorry, of column title. And we can have this on one line actually. We'll just have this as sedans. You could have it as this, but I'll show you a way of being able to just write the text however you want, and it'll automatically capitalize. It's just a bit of a better way in case someone was ever editing your site, accidentally left a capital letter out. This way it automatically fixes it up. Cool. So below that we'll have the paragraph text. So p dot column text. Okay, so I think the first one is the right text, but it goes down to trip. Cool. And then we have button down the bottom. And to keep the size of the button correct, we're going to wrap the button in a button container as well. You could probably just have the button by itself, but this will be a little bit of a better way. Button dot button. Learn more. Let's just check what this looks like. Cool. So that's the right format. Button. Cool, cool, cool. Cars column. So this is what we need to copy 3 times. I'll just copy the contents. Cool. Okay. So let's just fix up these. So the next one is SUVs. Copy the text. I've got the text on another window, so I'm just going to delete this for now. So it's a little easier to see. SUVs. Cool, cool. That one's done. This one, yep. Oh, whoops, we got the order mixed around. And then this one's luxury, I think. Luxury, yep. Cool. Cool, I think that's all done. So, if you notice, the buttons also have a different color depending on the column. So we'll have a generic button class which will have the same padding and stuff, but we'll need to have another class which determines color. So button, for this one will be button cyan. This one will be button orange. This one will be button dark cyan. Cool. I think that's the HTML set up and done. Sweet. So we got that done. Now let's go to our CSS. So just gonna move these up. So let's fix our container first so that everything centers in the middle. So container will have in order to center this vertically in the middle, we'll need to somehow make the container the full height of the screen. So the container will be height 100 viewport. width of 100%. It'll be display flex because we want to center it with flexbox. Justify content center. Align item center. Boom. In the middle. Cool, cool. Now, since we're using SCSS, this will make things a lot neater because cars is within container, we can just have the CSS within this tag instead of within this selector instead of having like dot container dot cars or that kind of thing. So this will make things a lot easier. So the cars div is the one that wraps the columns. So this one will have to be display flex if we want all these columns to be next to each other. So display flex. We'll want a max width so that it doesn't take up the full width of the page because at the moment it's quite large. I'm just gonna close that. So max width will be 1100 pixels. Now we've got some space on either side. We'll give it a height of 500 pixels. Cool. This looks a bit weird now, but in a second, yeah. So it looks like it's properly spaced. It's just not. It looks like it's a bit high up because the contents is right to the top, but we'll fix that in a second. Cool. We will add a media query here in a second or later once we finish the main styles, which will be at the top of this part, which will essentially, because the mobile view on desktop they're horizontal, but on mobile they're vertical. So we'll have to add a media query that changes the flex direction to column at a certain width. So we'll do that later on. Cool. So now cars column. So cars column is each of these columns. And we want cars column to firstly have a padding around the corner. At the moment it's right, everything's at the edge of the div. So padding 50 pixels. That looks a bit better. Display flex direction column. Cool. Justify content center. Oh, sorry. There should be space between so that it kind of stretches out across the height of the div. Cool. That looks a bit better. Okay. Now, we want to give a bit of margin to each of the elements so that when it goes to mobile, the items aren't squashed up. So to target each individual child element within the div, we can do the ampersand sign, right arrow, and the asterisk for all. The ampersand basically means cars. It's like a replacement for the parent div, so it's like this. So you can use this as like shorthand instead of doing the name of the parent. And then we'll just do margin top 10 pixels. So this will just add 10 pixels onto the height, onto the margin of each element. Cool. Now, I think I need to add a class name for the images. Yep. So class column image column image column image. Cool. Now we're going to set a height for the image. So I'll go further down a bit. We'll say column image height 50 pixels. Makes it a bit bigger. That looks a bit more like the image. Close enough. Okay. Now this needs to have the proper font and the size. So we name that one column title. Column title is going to have a font family of we had one that was called Big Shoulders Display and Lex and Decker. So I think this one was the Big Shoulders Display one. And if you're not sure how to set the CSS to change the font, you can actually, it gives you it down here when you go into Google Fonts. So this one, well, this is for the other one, but it'll show you on there how to set it. So we're just going to do that here. So this one is supposed to be uppercase as well. So text transform uppercase needs to be a bit bigger, so font size, we'll say 2.5 rem, 2.75 rem. What does that look like? That looks a bit big. Put it back down to 2.5. Cool, cool. And I think it has to be white. We might do the backgrounds now as well. So what did we put as the column orange? So where we have the cars column style, since this one's applied to the same div, we will want these background styles to be outside of the cars column parentheses or curly brackets. So column orange will have a background of color orange. Cool. And then we'll have one for cyan. In case you're wondering why, when I click save, the format of some of my code readjusts, I've got this extension called Prettier that's really useful that I'd recommend installing, and it just makes formatting your code a lot easier because every time you click Control Save, it'll automatically format. Okay, this one will be cyan, color cyan. This one will be dark cyan. Cool. That looks a lot better. We're slowly getting there. Okay. Now we will need to do the text. So let's go back up to here column title. Below that, column text will have, this will have a font family of the other one, which was Lexan Deca Sans Serif. Cool. Now, text transform. What does... For this one, I don't think having color white will do the job, because it looks kind of like the text is a little gray. I think what they've done is they've set the opacity to like 0.7 or something, so it looks a little bit transparent. Oh yeah, here they've set it up. So this is what they've used for the paragraph text. Let's just copy that and set the color to that instead of white. Cool, that looks a lot better. Font, line height, 1.75. Let's have a look. Cool, that looks a lot better. Okay, now we'll do the button. So the button will have padding of, it looks like it's got a little bit more padding on the sides on the top. So let's say padding top and bottom 15 pixels, padding left and right 30 pixels. And it's also got rounded corners, so border, radius, 50%. Whoop, too much. I think 100 pixels. Yep, that looks about right. Border. Let's leave that for now. We also want it so that when we hover over the button, the cursor icon shows. So cursor, button hover, cursor pointer. So now the little hand pops up. Now let's do the colors for each button. Button orange, I think we had. Yep. Button orange. Border, 1 pixel solid. We don't want to have it as the same color. We'll have to have it, it looks like they've got it a little darker. So we'll do dark orange. Font family. Looks like the font's changed, so I'll have to set font family to this one up here. And then text transform uppercase. Oh, capitalize. Yep. And then the font size should be a bit bigger. Cool. Let's just copy this. Cyan. Let's see if there's like if they have a dark cyan. Yep. Cool. Let's have a look. So they've got the text also that color. Okay. Cool. It's starting to look pretty good. Dark cyan. We've already used dark cyan, so we might have to have dark blue, no. Let's use this one. Okay. I think we've done all our styles. Now, we will just have to have it so that we'll have to add a media query so that when we get to mobile, this will change to flex direction column. So these stack. At the moment, that doesn't work. Okay. So let's go back up to the top where I had that media query. And let's do at media and max width of, we want it to break when it gets to probably like here, maybe a little bit down, maybe like there. So around 780 pixels. So max width 780 pixels. Why is that playing up? Oh, I think I've got to add screen. Cool. So this should be, at the moment it's default, but there should be flex direction column. Cool. So that has worked, but now we've got space at the top. And I think that is because cars doesn't take the full height. So let's say, oh yeah, because it was 500 pixels, so let's say height 100 viewport. Cool. And that's pretty much done. Sweet. Okay. I'll link the source code to this on my GitHub. And in case you're wondering, feel free to follow me on GitHub here. This is my GitHub profile. I'll link the source code in the description to the challenge. Post any comments if you have any questions. And stay tuned, I'll post stuff, a lot more front-end mentor challenges soon. So catch you next time.